82% of team members feel misunderstood or undervalued. So this is exactly where I like to be, teaching, communicating, helping others, realizing their aspirations. I'm so excited about shattering the glittering image and uncovering the truth about you.
Welcome back to the Intrepid Impact Leadership Show. I'm Jerry Howard, your host, your executive performance coach, your business consultant, and your certified jail inspector. Now, if you don't know what a certified jail inspector is, tune in because there's going to be a whole show devoted to it. But right now, today, I want to ask you a question. And hopefully I get to answer it. But I would love for you to answer and put your opinions in the comments below. The question is this. If we asked you, what type of leader would the people you work with, live with, and those you lead say that you are? I'll say it again. What type of leader would the people that you live, work, and lead say that you are? Give that some thought. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, I'm a servant leader. They might say, I'm an encouraging leader, passionate, driven, logical, accommodating, relational, good, direct, all kinds of options when it comes to leadership. But what you got to know about leadership is leaders define culture. Say it again. Leaders define culture. So, how do we know what kind of leader you are? What kind of culture do you create? When you walk into a room, what kind of thermostat are you? Are you a servant leader? Are you a passionate, driven, understanding, confident, helpful, reflective leader? What kind of culture do you create? Leaders define culture. So if you're not sure, or if you think you're one and not the other, look around. What kind of people are following you? Because you attract to you who you are. Many, many years ago, I used to run hospitals. And when I was in training to learn how to do that job, the chief operating officer of the company that I worked at told me this, and this is some golden nugget advice here. If you're a leader worth following, you will hire leaders worth following. It's unequivocal. And here's how he broke it down. He said, first-rate players hire first-rate players. Makes sense. Seems pretty logical to me. First-rate players hire first-rate players. Hey, sounds like a great game plan. But what is a first-rate player? We'll dig into that in a minute. Let's dig even further on what second-rate players do. So if you're kind of maybe above average leader, right? Or maybe you're learning, or you're new, or you're naive, or you're accidental, or just having a bad day. Second-rate players probably won't hire a first-rate player because they're going to be intimidated by him. But a second-rate player is going to be intimidated by also a second-rate player, thinking that perhaps they would threaten their job. So your second-rate players tend to hire third-rate players. Uh-oh. Now it's getting worse. What about lower-level management? So if upper management's second-rate, and we've got, let's say, your VPs or your directors are third-rate, what kind of leaders or what kind of employees are your third-rate players hiring? It's not third. It's probably not fourth. Because at that level, the insecurities and the lack of understanding are high. So your third-rate players hire fifth-rate players. Fifth-rate players. It's getting bad now. But see, that's the thing. Now we're about at the supervisory level, right? So your title might end in supervisor. If that's the case and you're a fifth-rate player, probably not going to hire fifth, sixth, or seventh. It's most likely that you're going to hire eighth-rate players. So when you get into an organization and you observe the culture at the lowest levels, you're seeing the direct result of what the leader is, the ultimate leader, where the buck stops here, the person who signs the check, the person who owns the P&L, or the owner of the company. You're seeing a direct impact of that trickle-down effect. So how do we create culture? How do we create culture? How do we prevent the eighth-rate players? And if you're an eighth-rate player, fifth-rate player, third-rate player, second-rate player, it doesn't mean you can't change. It doesn't mean you can't have a good day and get better. You have to be intentional. There's intentional leaders and accidental leaders. We talked about that in another show, the difference between intentional and accidental. First-rate players are intentional. And what I like to tell my team members and my clients is for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, be intentional. Now, I know that we can't be both something at home and something else at work. That's called duplicity. But the best place to start is with your livelihood. So if you have to make a choice, start with work, develop those habits, get the bills paid, but bring those characteristics home. Be an intentional leader at home, because then you're a whole person. And I used to say this, and I think it was inappropriate for me to say it, not necessarily inappropriate, maybe it's bad advice. When you're out there in the world, put on your A game. When you come here, you can do whatever you want, No, that's not good advice. That's not good advice. Why? Because the people you lead at work, the people you live with, the people you lead everywhere are all important. So we need to be first-rate players everywhere we go. First-rate players everywhere we go. But here's the key. We as individuals are not always the best judge of what it's like to be on the other side of ourselves. So at iNTREPiD Impact Leadership, at iNTREPiD Impact Team, we're a group of coaches and consultants that help leaders maximize their influence, maximize their potential by showing them what they look like on the other side of themselves. Now, we're not pointing the finger. We're holding up a mirror. So today, we're going to hold up a mirror. We're going to hold this mirror up and say, okay, what kind of culture did you create? Well, we love to use Giant worldwide tools. Giant is a consulting company that creates content for coaches and consultants. They do a great job of producing what we call neuro-linguistic science, which just means pictures and videos. So when I go into an organization, I can work with the owner, the executive team. I have an enterprise system we can roll out. All throughout, we use pictures and videos. We have books, but we don't make our clients sit down and read a bunch of books all the time. We teach practical tools that are simple, scalable, and sticky. They're easy to understand. So remember, being an intentional leader is important. And you really need to do that all the time. Doesn't mean you can't let your hair down or put your feet up when you get home, but you don't want to take off the intentional leader hat, because that is where your heart is. So why would we disrupt the heart? Why would we put that falsehood up when we get to work? Here's the thing. If you're learning this and you're at work and you're a leader, then you can start there. But I would say be intentional all the time. The best leaders in the world are intentional all the time. The first-rate players hire first-rate players because they're not intimidated by somebody who's better than they are. In fact, when I was running hospitals and I got over my accidentalness, I started looking for people that actually gave me a slight twinge of insecurity, because that's when I knew that I was looking at somebody who was better than me. Now, I'm a competitive person, so of course I got a little bit insecure about that, but I knew that that was my indicator. And after a while, you just get used to working with people that are top-notch. Here's what happens when you have a team of top-notch people. You far surpass your profitability goals, and if you're running hospitals, your patient outcomes in clinical care are 5-star. And all your employees love being there. Why? Because you don't have any 8th-rate players at the bottom of the organizational chart there. You have first-rate players throughout. And you may have some here and there, but generally speaking, if you're a first-rate player running an organization, then you're going to hire first-rate players, and they're going to do the same thing. And it does trickle down. You don't have to be an MBA to be a first-rate player. You don't have to be director of whatever or CEO so-and-so to be a first-rate player. It starts by knowing yourself to lead yourself. And that's the reason why we say that you're not the best judge of what kind of culture you create. Part of leadership is learning to balance support and challenge. So when we say what kind of culture do you create, what we're asking is what kind of support and challenge do you bring to the organization? Remember when I said I was slightly intimidated by the person that was better than me, right? So in that regard, how is that person bringing challenge to me? How is that person raising me up? Well, it's causing me to think twice about, hey, what am I insecure about? What am I afraid of losing? What am I trying to hide? What am I trying to prove and to whom? When we first started the show, and almost every show, you've heard me say, certified jail inspector. Why would I do that? Because I don't have anything to hide, not trying to prove anything, and I'm not afraid of losing credibility because of the mistakes I made. When I was being an accidental person, like anybody, make mistakes. So let's put it out there and not worry about it anymore. So when you bring support and challenge, you've got to start with your own authenticity, recognizing what you look like on the other side of yourself. So let's take an exercise here for a moment and let's look and see, what does it look like when someone brings support but brings challenge to those they lead? Or conversely, what does it look like when someone brings challenge but struggles to bring support? Let's break that down a little bit. So we bring a lot of support and low challenge. Where have we seen that? I think the operative word nowadays is Karen. We've seen that on the playing fields of America. If people were all of equal value, we would all make the same amount. But here's the thing, there's no incentive to grow if we don't have that. So I'll be honest, I'm not in favor of participation trophy. I help leaders win, and that allows me to win. All right? So in order to bring effective challenge, you have to be willing to understand that, hey, there's growth opportunities there. But if we don't bring that challenge, then we create a situation where people feel entitled. Entitlement breeds mistrust, and people tend to expect something for nothing. We need to work to improve ourselves. Now, what does it look like when someone brings high challenge but low support? Kind of the flip side, isn't it? High challenge, low support. High challenge. Maybe that looks like, son, if you get the football, I expect you to score a touchdown. I'll say it again. If you get the football, I expect you to score a touchdown, every time, right? My son plays defense, so that's not even realistic. Although, when he does get the football on defense, he tends to do well. Used to be a running back. But that's the point. You can't expect a touchdown every time. Here's the other thing. Let's bring no support to that picture. Well, son, I expect you to score a touchdown every time you touch the football. And by the way, I'm not going to drive you to practice. I'm not going to pay for your pads, and I'm not going to pay for the sponsorship. That's no challenge, or no support, high challenge. Starting to get a picture? We call that dominating. Dominating. Right? So we've got 4 quadrants of culture, and we call this the support challenge matrix. The support challenge matrix has 2 lines in it, one going vertical and one going horizontal. The vertical line says we bring high support or low support. The horizontal line says we bring low challenge or high challenge. And within those 4 quadrants are the areas that we tend to find culture. We've got protect. Heard of that one, right? What is a protect culture? That's a culture of entitlement and mistrust. Well, if we bring too much support and not enough challenge, oh, it's okay, honey, if you stole that car. It's okay. Really? You can't steal a car. You're going to prison. Right? Conversely, if we have the dominating culture, we have no support and high challenge. Y'all know that Intrepid Impact Leadership sits at the intersection of faith, leadership, and business. So I love to bring biblical principles to our lessons here. Think about Pharaoh in the time of Moses. When Moses came back and was saying, let my people go, the Pharaoh said, you got to make the bricks, but there's no straw. He took away the straw. He took away the support and kept the challenge really high. That's a dominating culture. And we've done that. We've all done it in our time. So how do we prevent that? Well, we up the support. In fact, if you're not sure how to help someone, the best thing I say to do is to start with the support, see what challenge you need to bring to match that. Because at least 50% of leaders miss the support part. They have a struggle with separating the person from the task. So I say bring that support and then bring the challenge. Make sure it goes along with it. How does that look? Well, let's say that I'm running a hospital. Well, my director of nursing says, hey, we need 2 more CNAs on night shift. That's great, I'm happy to help you with that. But one of the things we got to make sure we do is we have high clinical outcomes. We've got to make sure that the patients that bring us the appropriate reimbursement rates are being cared for and in and out of the hospital timely, right? So we've got high support. I got your 2 certified nurses aides, but now I need you to achieve the metrics. So let me know what you need, and I'll help you get to the goal. Let's look at the goals together and decide how we can successfully get there. Because there has to be fiscal constraints to things, because we don't have a blank checkbook. And then what if we have low challenge and low support? What does that look like? Think about it. Low challenge, low support. Son, I'm not going to drive you to football. I'm not going to pay for your pads, but you know what? I don't really care. Whatever grades you get is the ones you get. That's fine. Do whatever. Whatever. It's fine. Whatever. You hear the word whatever a lot nowadays, don't we? Whatevs, right? That's abdicating. Low support, low challenge. But think about it. The culture becomes one that's apathetic and one that has low expectation. So when you are in a culture that has low expectation and a culture of high apathy, you might find yourself in what we call the pit of despair. Think about it in a large organization. Let's say you have 2,000 employees or more. There's 10% of the people there that are there, but they're not really there. They're usually in the pit of despair, operating in a culture of apathy or abdicating culture. Low support, low challenge. They just got missed somewhere along the way. Nobody cares about them, but nobody's challenging them either. They're just kind of floating along. And I have a lot of experience in larger organizations and small business. And in small business, I always used to say, here, you will never go home one day wondering how important your role was or how much of a difference you made. You'll never have to wonder that. Why? Because it's too small for you to hide. Conversely, there is nowhere to hide. So you have to bring your best every day because other team members would suffer if you didn't do that. All right? So we don't have a lot of abdication in the small business arena unless, of course, the owner is trying to do everything themselves, which I've helped people with before. So those are the 4 quadrants: high support, low support, high challenge, low challenge. All right, but the last quadrant that I didn't mention is the most important one: the culture of empowerment and opportunity. Empowerment and opportunity. You have the opportunity to win this soccer game, young man. You have to bring your best. You have to bring your best at every practice. Think about how that works. Let's switch back to football because that's one of the things that I'm most familiar with recently. Now, I used to play baseball in high school, but my son's in football, and I have another son that's in football as well. So they practice 4 days a week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No practice on Friday. Game on Saturday. And then in high school, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday game. Well, think about how much time they put into practice versus the game. The game only might be 2 or 3 hours, but they've already put in 6 to 8 hours of practice in that week. You have to operate that level. That's your opportunity. You have to show up every day. So you have to put in your 40 hours at work or your other 16 hours a day at home. There's a book out there called The Other 8. Might want to check out because why? There's 24 hours in a day. Let's say you got 8 hours of sleep, which most people don't, but you should. Let's say you did rest for 8 hours. What are you doing with the other 8? Well, I want you to bring your best all the time. All the time. So I want you to create a culture of empowerment and opportunity all the time, both at home and at work. Now, let's look at the challenge side of things. The challenge is you got to show up to practice. You got to be there every day. You got to bring your best. You got to stay calm. If you've listened to some of our other or watched our other shows, you've heard me talk about the 5 voices. My voice has a weapon system, and it's called the Hulk. It's like being hot-headed, right? Slamming doors, yelling, that kind of thing. That is not uncommon in my lifetime. Even currently, I'll admit it, that still happens from time to time. Unfortunate, right? But you can't bring that when you're bringing your best. So you have to ask yourself, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? We say halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. If you are in one of those states, you need to solve that problem before you can bring your best. Think about that when you're trying to create a liberating culture. A liberating culture. To liberate one is to create a culture of empowerment and opportunity. A culture of empowerment and opportunity. Think about your life. Think about those cultures that you see in your life. Not only the ones that you're responsible for, but those ones that you've seen in your life, whether it's at work, home, community. Have you seen abdicate? Low challenge, low support. Protect, high support, no challenge. What about dominate? High challenge, no support. Or liberate. Now, liberate's the one where you feel like you're in your giftings, you're moving forward, you're energetic. You can create that. Doesn't mean you're not working. In fact, you're probably working harder than you ever have. But it doesn't feel like work. You can create that culture for everybody around you. So we got high support, high challenge. That's the liberating culture. So my challenge to you is assess what your culture looks like. Look around you. Is everybody screaming, fighting? Is everybody not playing along? Can you not get them to do anything? Are they abdicating? What kind of culture have you created? What kind of challenge and support have you created? When it comes to your team, do you know them? Do they know what's expected of them? Because when you create a culture of empowerment and opportunity, you create a place where everyone can bring their best. And you will literally unlock the potential of people. If you want to win in every metric in the business, whether you're the owner, C-suite executive, or what have you, you need to unlock the potential of your team. You need to figure out how they're wired. What does support look like for them? And there's 5 circles of influence that I want you to keep in mind. We'll close with this. We've got the self, that's you. How are you leading yourself? Are you dominating yourself? Telling yourself you're overweight? I know my 6-pack abs here make everybody intimidated. But are you dominating yourself? Right? Family. What kind of culture are you creating there? Team, organization, and community. Think about all 5 of those areas. Are you more present in the community than you are in your family? I say start with self, family next, team closest to you, your advisors, and then the organization, then the community. Those are your priorities. So, abdicate, dominate, protect, and liberate. In each of the 5 circles of influence, self, family, team, organization, and community. What kind of culture are you creating in those areas? Think about this too. When you're at your worst, what kind of culture do you create? Is it dominating or is it abdicating? Is it protecting? Do you protect thinking that you're liberating? Right? Well, the Bible says that the fruit that's produced tells you what kind of tree you get. So what fruit is being produced around you? That's how you know what kind of culture you create. So when we think about the 5 circles, self, family, team, organization, and community, what kind of culture are you creating? And here's a real step. Here's the next step. Ask your team members what they think the culture is. Ask your family what they think the culture is. Don't tell them your answers. Explain the 4 quadrants. Ask them. You can even let them leave the room. Maybe do a survey. Pass them all out. No names, no nothing. Throughout your whole team, family, organization. Right? And then collect them and see which quadrant you land on. Anonymous is going to be best. Compare that to what you think's happening. And put the comments about what happened below. So today we covered the 5 circles of influence and the support challenge matrix. 4 quadrants, all defining culture. Remember, leaders define culture. So if you're an unhealthy leader, it's likely the culture's unhealthy. And you can look around and see that everywhere. So we got to start by changing ourselves. So again, thanks for viewing. Thanks for tuning in. If you're on the podcast, thanks for listening. This is another episode of the Intrepid Impact Leadership Show, where we sit at the intersection of faith, Leadership in business, and to us, they are as inseparable as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Can't lead without faith. Can't lead or can't have business without leadership. We'll see you next time.
82% of team members feel misunderstood or undervalued. So this is exactly where I like to be. Teaching, communicating, helping others, realizing their aspirations. I'm so excited about shattering the glittering image and uncovering the truth about you.